Welcome to another installment of Millelacsvotes, hashtag Millelacsvotes TV. I have with me the infamous Luther Sam, who is in transit into the house with his lovely dog, and Colin Cash and the beautiful Adrienne Benjamin are all joining me tonight. And we want to take some time, we're going to take some time talking a little bit about the importance of voting for Mille Lacs Band members. Hopefully Mille Lacs Band members, you have to exercise this vote because there are these other governments out there that impact your lives. And we want to take it to a couple folks that have been doing some advocacy work for some time now. And I think we'll go with ladies first. And we're going to start out with a question, kind of a softball question. How important is the Native vote in the 2020 election? We're going to start out with the lovely Miss Adrienne Benjamin.
So, Ani, I think that the Native vote is always important, definitely a little more in 2020, but I think that every single time the federal government elects a new power position, even on Senate level, it always impacts people like Jamie who work in government to try to protect our sovereignty, to have that respected on all of those different levels. And I think even on, just local, state, those are just as important for our Native voice to be heard there. Those are the ones that really will affect us the most. Yeah, so I think it's always important, definitely with the, everything that's going on this year, the Supreme Court picks. This is a very important election, but just want to stress that it's always important, not just now.
That's right. And I will say it's not only, it's important, I guess for me, and that, that's the work that our department does when I'm charged to do in terms of following some of these elected officials, but it's important to all of us because the decisions that are made, partisan, bipartisan, good, bad, ugly, they affect all of us. And we've definitely seen firsthand in the Mille Lacs community how certain elected officials can impact our lives daily. We don't want to spend too much time talking about the law enforcement agreement and that history with Mille Lacs County. We'll get into that a little later, but can you answer the same question that I threw out, Colin, to Adrienne? How important is the Native vote in the 2020 elections?
I think it's like what Adrienne said, it's always very important, and especially this voting cycle because of the current president that sits in the White House right now, trying to disestablish tribes, coming for some of our inherent sovereign rights, our treaty rights, environmental issues, things that a lot of people are passionate about. And, and I think it's important to vote just so you have representation. If you are part of a big block of voters and they know that you vote, then politicians will cater to your vote. And so there's a lot of people that don't normally engage in the political process. And I'm seeing that this arena is a lot smaller than people think, just because there's not a lot of participation. And and I'm seeing how important even these local races are, like the Mille Lacs County costing the tribe millions of dollars in lawsuits just from a local race, county commissioner race. And so that's on a local level. Then you see on a presidential level, like what can happen. And so it's now more than ever with what our tribes are up against, knowing that our rights is kind of on a pendulum, so it comes in waves. Sometimes we get a lot of leeway and we're represented, and then sometimes, like we're not. And so it's important to keep your foot on the gas, so to speak, and be represented and be out there and be engaged. And so I think it's very important this election cycle, especially with the current president.
I know you don't want to go in too hard on the current president, but man, I like that hat, Niche. Where can I pick up one of those? Yeah, that's dope, man. I like it. So Luther, I'm gonna pose the same question to you. From your perspective, how important is the Native vote in the 2020 elections, or just in general?
Just in general, just real quick. I mean, I feel like it's important because it it unites us. It unites all the people. It unites all the tribes. I mean, we all share that common ground if we're all voting, right? It's a common ground that all tribes share. I mean, next to ceremony, right? So, I mean, that's what I see the importance is the unification for all tribes.
Yeah, very important to, as we heard from folks, you know, protecting our inherent sovereign authority, our treaty rights, you know, our well-being in community, all those decisions that are made at the state level, federal level, and of course the local level that impact us. So we're gonna keep it going. As we're going to our second question, Luther, we're gonna start out with you. I'm gonna switch it up here. I was gonna ask that question, but I'm gonna go to this question. With the presence of COVID-19, there are a lot of ways to vote early this year. Are you planning to vote early?
Absolutely.
Or have you already voted? Okay, all right.
Yeah. No.
You want to expand on that, or just you're gonna do it?
Well, I got the ballots actually sitting up on the countertop right now. I just gotta fill it out and send it in. So yeah, I already requested ballot, registered. I just want it to be known quick that I am a felon. I do have felonies on my record. I am currently not on probation or parole or serving a felony sentence. So with that being said, as a felon, I am actually able to vote.
Yeah, that's an important message for folks out there in Minnesota. If you're no longer on paper, and even if you had a felony in the past, you are eligible to vote. Unfortunately, there's no reporting requirements that the state Secretary of State's office does. That hasn't happened legislatively, but your voting rights are are automatically restored as soon as you finish your probation or are off paper, which is the terminology used often. So, all right, miigwech for those words. Luther, let's shoot over to Adrienne to answer this same question. With the presence of COVID-19, there are a lot of ways to vote early this year. Are you planning to vote early? This one's kind of tough because I asked Adrienne earlier if she was going to vote early, so she's going to share with us her perspective on early voting.
Sure. So I actually did request a ballot, but then I changed my mind. I actually enjoy, as much as the COVID thing is one thing, but I enjoy walking in the aisle City Hall and making people annoyed that there's Native folks voting. It happens. Yeah, so that's my plan. I actually plan to vote just like a normal year on election day.
All right, so that's good. So it's important. I know you're doing a lot of work, real quickly, Adrienne, I know you're doing work you had mentioned earlier, kind of across the country, educating young people, sharing your art and your gifts. You want to share any of that work with you? Are you doing any voter mobilization work as well, or just leadership training?
Sure. So I think it's Thursday. I'm actually doing an artist sit down talk back session with the Alliance of Artist Communities. It's a artists coalition, I believe, a nonprofit that pushes for a lot of fellowships, equity in the arts. And we're actually talking about activation in communities and how art can get people more involved, not only in just voting, but just in general in decision making across the board. So pretty excited for that. That's Thursday. And I just recently had an opportunity with Drew University they did a play that was about monuments and the way that people view history in the US. And it was really interesting. It was a session that was all muted, and they asked me to tell them what I thought about their play. And it was the first time that somebody just gave me the mic and let me roll with it. And I think I was shocked the host a little bit. But there was a section where it was kind of like a park ranger was just telling, obviously what we all know is blatant lies, just outrageous stuff oh, Thomas Jefferson had blue hair and he was the first person to do that, just crazy stuff. It was part of the play, was to change your perspective. And in the talkback session, you know, I talked about that stuff that we're used to, you know, when we hear the histories, or I've been on a tour bus in Boston talking about, you know, the relocation of natives being explained as this friendly thing that happened where the native folks wanted to just move out of the kindness of their heart. And so I talked about how that really was something that a lot of people in this country sit through, was listening to like lies that sound that ridiculous. And that was just a little tidbit, but that was something fun that, you know, it's hard to maintain an audience when you're talking a lot about truth and history and narrative. But I think, you know, we're at a point in time right now where people are listening more than they ever have before. So it's important to be the person talking.
Thanks for sharing, Miigwech, for that. We have some talented Anishinaabe who are on the line today, joining us, everyone in their own right, doing their work to uplift communities, share their talents. And we'll go to Colin Cash from to answer that same question. I know has done a lot of work through Sober Squad, helping community, you know, get healthy. And just real quickly, Colin, again, with the same question, with the presence of COVID-19, there are a lot of ways to vote early this year. Are you planning on voting early?
My original vote plan is to vote in person on election day at the polls. But like recently, the past couple of days with the spike of Minnesota's COVID cases starting to be on the rise again, I'm thinking of adjusting my voting plan and actually going to Mille and filling out a ballot and turning it in there. But that was just up until a couple days ago, like my voting plan was going on election day, and I really do enjoy the process of the booth and going in there and presenting my ID kind of thing, because as like what Luther was alluding to earlier, I am a felon, and so I haven't been having the privilege to vote for a lot of time, a good portion of my life. And so it's something that is very important to me today. And I love exercising that right. And kind of like, I really liked Adrienne's response of like letting people see a native come into the booth on voting day and how important that is. And, but on the other hand, keeping the elderly here safe is you know, something that's ingrained in all of us. So in-person or early in-person voting is definitely an option, and that's something I'm considering right now.
Gotcha, thank you. Luther, do you want to share any interesting, I loved your, just FYI, I loved it. I mean, part of the reason why I reached out this time, other than the fact that I know you're active, you do a lot of good work in community, but I really liked your video that you did on Facebook, where you changed your gear up, right? You were kind of in street gear, and then you put on your Biden Harris, you know, paraphernalia, and then you put on your regalia, you know, and I know you're a dancer as well. My daughter remembers you as that. Why don't we switch gears? We'll go to the final question that I have for folks today. So we're getting ready to wrap this up. Again, this is a second installment of Millelacsvotes TV, hashtag Millelacsvotes TV. So you can check this out on the band's Facebook page. We're gonna try to get that out on YouTube as well for folks. Just again, reiterating the importance from community member perspective of voting and exercising your right early or on election day. So are there any races that you're paying, you know, really close attention to this election cycle, Luther?
I'll be straight up, man. I watch a lot of CNN. I watched both debates, and you know, other than I gotta go with Biden Harris. I've seen 4 years of Trump, and it's just not something that I'm looking forward to if he does get reelected. So as far as paying attention to the races, I watch a lot of CNN, brother. So I'm yeah.
Gotcha. Understand. Yep. And we want folks, it's really important to get out and vote. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, but hopefully, like Luther, you're doing your homework and you're seeing the writing on the wall. I know I have my preferences. If you listen to my radio show, Beats, Friends, and Democracy on KFAI, you will hear the various rants that we go on a regular. And so it'll be pretty easy for you to tell who I might be supporting this election cycle. But why don't we switch this over to Adrienne to ask the same question. Are there any key races that you're paying close attention to for this upcoming election cycle?
Yeah, definitely the president. I mean, I think any minority right now is feeling, you know, the pressure, and especially, you know, I'd have friends all over the country, and I think right now, like, we're seeing a lot more hate than is usually out there, more blatant. I know, like, the day that after that Trump was elected, I remember driving on the road that I've lived on for like 10 years now, and this guy had a Confederate flag hanging for like 2 days, so he was feeling really bold, and then it just switched to an American one. But I just think about stuff like that, like, you see that so much more now, and just, I think people don't understand, or maybe they do at this point. I'm starting to think that they do understand what it means and the way that it makes people feel, and you know, I'm not about that. And the other race, I talked to Jamie a little bit before, but I write a lot of articles for the Anajimon, and I actually wrote one about voting this for November. And I talked about the importance of the county commissioner race and having Brad Harrington be a part of it, because, you know, while he would probably get outvoted quite a bit on, you know, the different aspects, I think one thing that's really important to getting diversity and representation is that it changes the conversation, right? Like, he's going to have a stage to talk about things, give a different perspective, you know, offer some of that narrative truth that most people just never heard. You know, I think in all of the work that I've done, it's always been like a sit back moment of simply like, I never knew that. I never knew that. And then, you know, then the guilt and all that other stuff clicks. But I think people have to get to that point, and they have to know it. They have to hear perspective from other people. And so, like, I really hope that he gets voted into that seat. I think just alone on the fact that it brings a completely diverse perspective, and one that deserves to be on the ticket. You know, we are just as big of you know, economic powerhouse in this county, and deserve that voice on that county commissioner board. So that's one thing that I talked about, is the importance of just getting different, you know, voices at the table that haven't been there before. And I think right now we're seeing this big fear mongering about diversity and what that brings, you know, people getting called, whatever, the proclamation thing yesterday, I won't go into detail about that, but you know what I mean? It's like, are people really like renegade, or are they just wanting the truth after all this time? I think people are scared of the truth because they know what it is, and they've known for 200 years. And that's why we haven't heard it. Okay.
I think you were referring. No, that's all right. That's all right. You're very passionate, and that's what's important. Bring your passion to the polling place. Bring your passion to the work that you do in community, and everyone's on the line does that for sure. And I think you were referring to the Trump proclamation, right, on Columbus, and his perspective of radicalized movements. You know, but again, I think he called Columbus a good Italian, but the reality is was that, you know, he was a terrorist in many respects. And,
right.
And you know, the record in the history books, you know, as they have been revised to reveal the reality, is not someone who should be honored or respected for the terrible things that he did. So anyway, let me go. This will be the last question asked, and if you all want to close with or depart with any good words, we could do that. But let me ask the same question to Colin. Colin, are there any races you're paying really close attention to this election cycle? And maybe there are a few from you.
Yeah, so like there's actually is quite a few. Like it's crazy because this is like my first year being involved and realizing how small these tables are, and trying to get representation onto these seats is huge. And it's like, this is gonna sound super weird, all right, but whatever. I started with the caucus with Bernie Sanders at the local Cathio Township caucus thing they had this year. And it started there just because I believe in Bernie Sanders and what he was talking about. I'd never normally don't get involved into politics or anything like that. So that brought me to that table. Then I got voted as caucus chair, and having to do that, I was like, whoa, like realizing that if we just show up, how much influence we have. And it started there, and then eventually Bernie got out. So then got on with, started riding with Biden. And so like, obviously the presidential election is very important, is key to voter turnout, but there's also all of these small races that I started paying attention to. Like there's over in Crow Wing and Aiken for seat 10, there's Steve Samuelson running against Kerry Rood, and in Senate district or Senate seat 15, there's Brent Christ running against Andrew Matthews. And then the House for 15A, there's Calvin Schmuck running against Sandra Erickson. And I listened to her the other day at the candidate forum, and listening to her about the interpretation of the 1855 treaty was just appalling. And I can't believe that this person is representing our district or our area. So it goes to show how important these races are to our representation and our voice. So like, it was just horrendous listening to that interpretation, and I was powerless to do anything about it, sitting in the audience except for just listen. And so then there's, of course, there's CD8, Quinn Nystrom going against Stauber. That one I'm not really too interested in, but I really like that CD8, there's 5 reservations in CD8. So if we can get on the same page and get organized and unify our voice, we can have a powerful seat at the table. It just takes some work and some organizing skills, getting out there and getting that organized. And then I think one of the most important things that means the most to me this election cycle is the county commissioner seat. So when the county commission voted to terminate the joint powers agreement, I was doing a lot of community work at the time, and there was the first 16 months of the no joint powers agreement, there was 17 overdose deaths and 1 homicide during that little area. And these are community members. These are so like our area here was directly affected by a local race. And that was a very difficult, traumatic time for not only just me, but our people here. And we are one of the largest Democratic voting blocks in District 5, and we have a lot of power if we just turn out. So Dave Oslin, Brad Harrington is running against Dave Oslin, and he won with 2,000 votes. And this last election cycle, I think there was maybe like 500 or 600 people that turned out from District 1 here to vote. And so if we could steal maybe like 500 to 700 people from Dave Oslin and the band turns out to vote, like Brad really does have a nice shot at it. And that's very important. And Mille Lacs County has the highest tax rate out of, I think it's like the 3rd or 4th highest tax rate in the state of Minnesota. And that's all because of the county board trying to fight these lawsuits against the tribe here. And so it's just there's a lot of repercussions on this local race, and they're very important. And so getting Brad out there talking about the issues and no matter what happens, he spoke and people listened, and it was, and so I think that's just as important, letting know like, hey, we're here and we're voters. So I don't know, I kind of went on a tangent, but whatever.
That's all right. Yeah, so a lot of incentives out there to vote. We have, Shanab from the D1 community area, District 5 in Mille Lacs County, who was on the ballot. We've seen what happens when you elect Native people to office. We see what, how the state has been impacted by Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and how that just changes the relationship, the government-to-government relationship that we have with the governor's office and the entire administration. So these races are very, very important. So thank you for tuning in to another episode. Are there any parting words? Any any rah-rah or anything that anyone wants to say? I don't see anyone going to their mic to, okay, there goes Luther. What's up, man? What do you want to add before we go?
I just want to say, I mean, it's important. This presidential election is important, just because I feel like some of the wording in our own local constitution, tribal constitution, it makes us vulnerable. And this administration is, I feel like, is very dangerous to our constitution, because we are vulnerable. It's just the wording that we have. This administration has really proven and shown how dangerous they can be. So it's very important that all tribes, all Shinabs get out and share this unity of going out and voting. My opinion, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think that we underestimate ourselves in the power that we have collectively with our numbers to unseat some folks. So everyone should get out and vote. I know, like, you know, and that the other thing I know, like, just from hearing some stuff, that some youth feel really like disenfranchised with the two-party system. It's definitely something I've seen and heard, but you know, at this point, like with things where they are, I think it's, you know, voting on your best conscience right now, and which of those two people are going to be a better fit for the next 4 years, because it's going to be one of them, you know.
That's right. They do say that if you're not at the table, you're on the table as a meal. So it is important. Your participation is important to show up. Showing up is half the battle. So Chi-miigwech, folks, for tuning in, and Chi-miigwech for my wonderful panelists. Hopefully we'll be back over the next couple of weeks, again, sharing and asking and encouraging folks to get out and cast that vote. Really important.